Ignite is an ongoing series of speedy presentations. They've ranged from building multi-person pogo sticks to hacking chocolate. Any topic that geeks hold dear. Each speaker gets only 5 minutes and 20 slides that auto-advance every 15 seconds. The talk you're about to hear was recorded live at one of the featured Ignite events around the world.
So our last speaker of the night is one of, I think he's probably spoken at more Ignites in Reno than anyone has. And so Mike Higdon has spoken on things that he's learned from Star Trek. He has spoken about the things that he's learned from beer. And tonight we're going to hear a little bit about exactly, how awesome beards are. How many people think beards are awesome? And I'm going to go ahead and let Mike explain exactly what he means by that. So, Mike?
So don't start yet because I actually have to give credits because, so Alan Peterkin wrote the book 1,000 Beards, and so I took about 99% of the information from that book, and 99% of the photos are from the internet because that's the way the world works. So this time I'm using notes because there's actual facts in this one, so bear with me for the notes, okay people? Let's do this. Alright, it's important to note that there are many classes of beards nowadays, from the wizard beard you see on the left, all the way over to the Commander Riker beard, full of curves and shape, and a whole lot of goodness there. You'll see the George Clooney beard is very salt and pepper. It's a very important class of beard. If you can achieve the George Clooney beard, you've arrived at the beard haven. But let's start back at the beginning where beards were in the caveman raids. Have you ever seen the horrible Geico commercials with those poor old cavemen with beards? Those are historically inaccurate because cavemen actually shaved. So think of it, you have flint rock, you cut it into a piece of sharp flint rock, and you start shearing hair off of your face. That sounds like a lot of fun, right? So next we go to the Romans, because the Romans are the only ones that actually record history, and they were really fickle about their beards. They used to release a lot of proclamations about how they were less effeminate than the Greeks were, because the Romans were always against the Greeks. But Roman facial hair was representation of class. The slaves and the servants would always be required to do the opposite of what the rich people did. So if beards were in style, they'd have to shave, and if shaving was in style, they'd have to grow their beards out. So in Rome, you often swear by your beard, and that was a way of saying, I triple dog dare you. So you would hold the other man's beard and you would say, I really want you to do this for me. Maybe it was do the dishes, maybe it was take another lady, but whatever it was, that was how it worked. So Emperor Commodus, who is known as the idle emperor, also had a lot of time on his hands, and in 191 AD, he cut off customers' noses at barbershops because it was funny to him. And that's what Roman emperors do, because they're assholes. Here we see Scipio Africanus, who was actually obsessed with shaving. He shaved so often it was 3 times a day that he shaved because he hated facial hair. So think back in the day, you have brittle bronze and it's sort of sharp and you start scraping skin and hair off of your face 3 times a day because you're that much of a vain person. Next we move to the Middle Ages, and the most important thing to note in the Middle Ages is that religion was really in charge of everything. So we have the Catholics and the Greek Orthodox. Here we have a picture of a Greek Orthodox beard in modern times, but in the Middle Ages, the Greek Orthodox shaved and the Catholics didn't. And when they split, they switched it, so now Greek Orthodox have the huge beards and the Catholics don't. This is where we get the original idea of the Friar Tuck look, which is actually a huge stereotype that is propagated by the Catholic Church. This is called a tincture. So they shaved and they had a little bald spot in their head. And that spread all over Europe, and now we see people in monks doing that today. So this is the best story. This is Louis VII, who felt really guilty about burning a bunch of innocent people alive. So he shaved his beard as penance, because apparently that's what you did when you felt sorry to God. His wife Eleanor of Aquitaine was really upset with his bare face, so she went instead and married King Henry II of Diamonds, the Club of Diamonds and the King of Diamonds fame. And it caused a 300-year war between England and France. And that's why French are such a bunch of whiners. It's worth noting that for 400 years, after the clergy got rid of beards, this was the last guy in any notable clergy in the Catholic Church to ever have a beard. And his beard was called the cathedral beard. So after that, there's no popes that have any facial hair whatsoever because of this guy. England suddenly became anti-beard, and people started taxing beards, which is really, really mean. So lawyers could go to a cafeteria, and an unbearded man in front of him would pay $2, and he would pay $10 for the same meal. So you fast forward into the 19th century America, and we see a total reversal in the way people acted. Shaving had become a wholly unusual activity, and beards were reborn in a great burning phoenix emerging from the ashes. But what's interesting about to see that is that people still followed what England did, even though the colonies had turned into their own country. So if you look at Abraham Lincoln here without a beard, not only is it a little bit scary, but what turned out the reason he grew a beard is because a little girl who was 11 years old wrote a letter that said, "You would look a great deal better if your face is so thin. All the ladies like whiskers, and they would tease their husbands to vote for you and become president." And it's a good thing too, because Daniel Day-Lewis without a beard is kind of weird. The last two presidents to ever sport facial hair was Theodore Roosevelt and William Taft in 1901 and 1913. If you notice, every other president after that has been clean shaved because after that time became the professional look. Incidentally, King Gillette, who invented Gillette Famous, was the person who had been trying to invent a disposable razor for a long time, but a lot of steel workers told him that it wasn't possible to make a razor blade so thin and disposable that it could fit in one of these. This is a safety razor. This is actually my own collection of vintage safety razors from the 1920s. But what it turned out is that someone finally said that they could make one of the thin enough razor blades, which I actually have one of these, and it's really thick, so it's still really, really horrible to use compared to what we use nowadays. And from 1901 to 1917 was when he first sold his first 1 million blades. So what we can gather from this is that what we want to hope is that in the future, androids can grow beards in the same freedom that we do now, unlike in the Middle Ages when people had to follow what they were told to do.